Hello, this is Kevin Benedict, SMAC Analyst for Cognizant, and SMAC's the acronym for Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. I have the privilege of spending time here in Miami, Florida this week at the Enterprise Mobility Exchange 2013 with Bob Egan.
Hey,
Bob,
thanks, Kevin. Good to see you.
I read your stuff all the time.
I read your stuff all the time, too. Great industry, great people, right?
We just have a love fest here.
That's true. Yep,
So,
yep,
Bob,
yep.
I would really love to get your opinion on how can, when you're talking with companies, and you talk with a lot of companies out there around mobile strategy, how can you guarantee a company would fail around their mobile strategy?
Oh, that's a great question because so many people, bring me in and they've already failed a couple of times.
Yeah.
And they don't always recognize how they failed, right?
Yeah.
And certainly you and I and others continue to talk about, here's how you really need to build a mobile strategy. Here are the compelling components to being successful. But most interesting, a lot of people these days are saying, tell me the stumbling blocks that are really in front of me that if I fall over, it's a guaranteed failure,
Yes.
right? And I would say that the number one is
And we're all about guaranteeing failure here.
Yeah. Well, I don't react to that, but certainly we do see a lot of that out there. Kevin, the number one is really about organizations, whether it is a consumer-facing brand or whether it's a large enterprise that's doing something for the employees. The number one failure is just not engaging employees or the consumer, the end consumer.
Okay.
And so what does that mean? The first bad assumption that people make is that whatever they've been doing on the desktop and all the features that are available through the large screen at the desktop somehow need to be made available on a mobile screen, whether that's a tablet form factor or whether that's a smartphone factor. Instead of stepping back and saying, when you move into mobile, what you're really doing is helping people make decisions, take action. There's usually a sense of urgency. On a phone, it's a very transaction-oriented metaphor generally. And so take a look at the 70-30 or the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time, what do they really need? What do they really do? Rather than trying to do too much. Now, that's the feature side of that equation. The other side of the equation is what's that experience, right? As we heard someone actually say here today, change is a big thing with mobile. It's not only just about the process, but about the user experience, right? And most people don't really adapt to change. They sort of put up with change. And so if organizations spend more time with users finding out what change makes this enticing and makes them more motivating them to use and become engaged through these other channels that you're building through mobile, then you're going to guarantee yourself a lot more success than if you just make lots of big assumptions and make things happen.
I see a lot of challenges out there on the change management issue
Yeah.
because there is a lot more accountability that mobile can bring to a business.
Well, I think it sets a new tone for accountability because you can see it. It also takes a little bit more maturity on the management side when you have more and more people out of sight and make sure they're not out of mind, right? But I think it's also fair that if you look at mobility, it's really important to think about organizations that when they sit and they have reviews with their employees, right? The fundamental metric behind everybody's performance review is levels of connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, no connectivity, you're really orphaning your employee and not allowing them to be a good, productive citizen of the company.
Mm-hmm.
The other end of the scale, with too much connectivity, they're probably wasting a lot of time, spinning their wheels, having issues, being distracted, and therefore are also not productive. Somewhere in the middle is sort of the right balance that hits sort of the socioeconomic and emotional needs and wants of the individual, coupled with the business objectives and the needs of the organization, right? And so focusing on the end user and balancing all that stuff is definitely very important. And those organizations who don't, and a lot of them don't, that's the number one surefire way to.
So how else, Bob, can a company fail?
I would say that the number two is that so many companies don't really take a close look at as they mobilize applications for employees, or again, when you think about a retail company in the field, is the impact on the infrastructure, right? It's one thing, and there's a lot of predictive data that and historical data that they have about what desktops do and how they interact with the network. It's completely different when all of a sudden you have 10x more sessions or transactions happening through a mobile channel, whether it's a smartphone, tablet, or some other iteration. So the impact, not overestimating the number of features that you extend onto a mobile device, and underestimating the impact on the infrastructure is perhaps the second biggest deal breaker out there.
Awesome. Bob, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience with our audience.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.